Now to Operation Epic Fury. Moments ago, President Trump giving an update on negotiations with Iran, threatening destruction if a deal is not made.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Trey, good morning.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Operation Epic Fury has now entered week 5, and the United States continues to hammer the Iranian regime. Moments ago, President Trump took to Truth Social to give an update about the situation. He said, quote, "The United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposely not yet touched." Now, the president's comments come after a series of U.S. and Israeli strikes over the weekend that targeted Iran's steel manufacturing sites and nuclear development facilities. Reports indicate the president is considering a limited ground operation inside of Iran, following the arrival of the USS Tripoli, manned with 3,500 troops, including 2,500 Marines, to the CENTCOM area of operation. The president was asked about the status of military plans yesterday, saying this.
We've had very good negotiations today with Iran, getting a lot of the things that they should have given us a long time ago. We'll see how it works out, but they're very good. Moving along very nicely.
Are you considering still putting boots on the ground, and would you do that without going to Congress?
I just have lots of alternatives. We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them all because of, the power. We're ahead of schedule with Iran.
As the war grinds on, Iran is continuing its ballistic missile attacks against Israel, focusing attacks on southern Israel in recent days. A chemical plant outside the city of Beersheba was hit with a missile fragment yesterday, causing toxic black smoke to spew from the facility. The area around the plant was evacuated. With these strikes ongoing, a spokesperson for Iran's IRGC talked over the weekend about the war and President Trump.
Trump threatens an issue one morning and retreats that same evening. He talks about negotiations for a while and decides to continue the war hours later.
We also have new video this morning from the northern Israeli city of Haifa, where part of an Iranian missile slammed into an oil refinery. You can see the fire there as the Iranians are going after more energy targets across the region. And when the IRGC is threatening President Trump, they don't realize the president wants them to be confused about the military operations. There is a large U.S. force buildup across the region and many options on the table for President Trump as this war moves forward. Guys?
Yeah. So, Trey, how important is it to get that internet up, somehow being able to get the Iranian people to be able to communicate with each other? Do you think we're making any progress in that area?
Yeah, Brian, at this point, no. And it's a major concern for Israeli officials. They are sounding the alarm about the internet blackout across Iran that has now reached more than 700 hours. Iranian civilians not able to organize and speak with each other inside of the country. And also the extent of the damage from these U.S. and Israeli strikes isn't completely known due to the internet blackout. Earlier today, I spoke with a senior Israeli intelligence official who said in part, quote, "This is a blackout on truth. The regime is hiding reality from its own people. They don't want the Iranian people to see how badly they're getting hit." This official went on to say cutting the internet stops people from communicating, from sharing what's really happening, and from organizing. There are major questions about how the Iranian regime is also cracking down on internet access, and we are told that they are jamming the Starlink terminals inside of the country that Iranians previously used to communicate with the outside world.
You know, Trey, you talked about the need for the internet in order to have some sort of organic organization for what's going to happen if and when the regime is toppled. But over the weekend, we saw that Israel bombed 2 universities in Tehran. And concerns me on 2 levels, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. One, if they bomb those, now they've said, okay, you bombed these universities, now American and Israeli universities are now possible targets. So that's a concern. But also, if you bomb universities, you might anger the very people that you want to have organized, which is primarily young people who want to overthrow this government. Is that something that's being discussed in addition to the problem with the internet?
It's an incredibly delicate situation on the ground inside of Iran. And the president, in his post to Truth Social just last hour, made very clear there are a variety of targets that the United States has decided not to hit, giving these negotiations a chance to succeed. But the president's also been very clear if the Iranians are not willing to make a good faith agreement and come to the table with serious concessions about their ballistic missile program, their nuclear program, and support of regional proxies that threaten U.S. forces, that these other targets are going to be struck. And so the president maintains a variety of options when it comes to the targets inside of Iran. And again, the reality is that the Iranian regime is getting hit so hard that they're afraid for the world to see the aftermath of these U.S. and Israeli strikes. And that's part of the reason we are told by officials here in Israel that they are cracking down on internet access. And that's why Israeli officials believe it's so important to get the internet up in Iran so that the world can see the aftermath of these U.S. and Israeli strikes.
Real quick, Trey, how are the people seeing the propaganda videos with inside of? Is that through the internet? Like, what system are they using for the people in Iran to see those videos?
So there is still state media that is operating inside of Iran, but it certainly can't be trusted. And that, again, is why it is so important to have this internet access so that people can consume objective information about what's happening. Remember, there's quiet support for what President Trump ordered with Operation Epic Fury. Earlier this year, more than 30,000 Iranian civilians were slaughtered by their own regime. They took to their streets of their country protesting peacefully against the government, and they were met with live ammunition. And so that is certainly a concern for these people in Iran who previously were demonstrating in the streets of their country, but their access to information is very limited. And so we know the Israelis have used their intelligence apparatus to try to get information to the Iranian people. But the bottom line here is they don't even understand the extent of what is happening in their own country. And certainly the world isn't able to get a firm grasp on the aftermath of these U.S. and Israeli strikes. But moving forward, we're looking at a variety of things here. One has to do with the internet access in Iran. The second has to do with the pressure that the United States is continuously applying to the Iranian regime with these daily and often hourly strikes. And third, this question about if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith. The president has indicated there are individuals within the regime who are willing to talk at this point, given the fact that the United States and Israel have taken out dozens of senior Iranian officials. But the question is if they are willing to make a good faith agreement. And once again, the president being very clear, he is giving the Iranians an olive branch. He's giving them an off-ramp in this conflict. And he was very clear in that post on Truth Social, if they do not take this diplomatic option, they will face serious consequences.
I hope they understand that. Thanks so much, Trey. Appreciate it.
We know
Great
when the
reporting, Trey.
negotiation is going well because they live. When they don't live, then we know the negotiation isn't going so well. So we'll be following to see.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.